morning, crew. We are at Raw Vlog number 32. Raw Vlogs are recorded live in front of a steering wheel on my way to getting my Friday morning coffee delivered straight from the camera to you, raw and unrefined. In today's Raw Vlog, we are going to be talking about 5 of the things that I think are the best about mountain biking, 5 things I love about mountain biking. We're also going to be getting to, I think, hopefully all of the viewer questions that I have currently. A lot of you submitted those to me through Instagram. You can also hit me in the comments below with any questions that you have. Today's channel news is that the video coming up on Monday will be a Santiago Oaks where we are going to ride. Well, that doesn't really matter, you'll see, but the main thing there is Katy, who you've seen in a few videos, has been progressing, and we get to watch her attempt to ride the waterfall on chutes. So that's pretty rad to watch that go down. I'm also out there with Tony from the Outsider MTB channel, and he was just kind of hanging out with us. He wasn't filming or anything. It was just rad to have him, you know, there along for the ride. Another piece of channel news, it's not exactly channel news, it's more like I'm thinking about some trip to the Sedona Mountain Bike Festival. So I'm thinking about that, looking at doing a little bit of sketching out my plans if I'm gonna do that or not. If you have any suggestions on going to that festival, like places to stay, things to look out for, strategies, all that kind of stuff, how to get the best demos in, let me know in the comments. So I think that's it. Oh, point of stoke is, I've already kind of talked about it. I was pretty stoked on Katy's bravery this last weekend while we were riding. She just, like, yeah, things went wrong at a certain point, and she dusted herself off and came back at it. So I'm pretty stoked on that. You'll see that in the video on Monday. But yeah, let's talk about so I wanted to talk about the 5 things that I really dig about, or 5 of the things that I really dig about mountain biking, mostly just as a flip to our last week's Raw Vlog where we talked about stuff that annoys me. And apparently a lot of that stuff annoyed you too. Sorry, I'm just thinking that there was a couple of comments about music on the trails, and I think we should maybe talk about that at some point. We're gonna save that till later. But if you want to hear about, or if you have additional thoughts on music on the trail, whether that's speakers or earbuds or whatever, let me know in the comments, because I'm thinking about doing a Raw Vlog on that. Let's get to the main thing, stuff that I love about mountain biking. I think one of those things is just being outside, being out in, you know, in the element. You're not, I mean, obviously when you're mountain biking, you're not always like out in the wilderness, but you can definitely get out into the wilderness mountain biking, but you're just generally out in the dirt. I really dig that. You may already know that I used to skateboard. I skateboarded for many years, and I loved it. And there's a lot of transference of things from skateboarding that I love that I also find in mountain biking. But the one thing you didn't really get in skateboarding was being outside, being out in the element. I think one of the only places I ever really experienced that while skateboarding was the old Colony Bowl, also known as the Nude Bowl, out on the way to Joshua Tree. And yeah, that was rad, actually, now that I think of it. In any case, being outside, being out in the element, just kind of helps put perspective on our lives, helps us get away from things. It's nice when there's no cell signal and you're just out there. It's pretty cool. I did the Palm Canyon Epic, I think, a couple years ago, and that was really rad. Some of that is also, like, when you get out into those areas, you really have to be self-sufficient. Palm Canyon Epic is one of those rides where if something goes wrong in the middle of that ride, and you're not able to fix your bike, or, you know, even if you just kind of run out of food, you could be in a bad place. So I like that about it. Another thing I really like about mountain biking is that you get to experience progression, whether that's learning how to jump, but I think for me, I love jumping. The thing that really that I really get into is there's terrain that I've came at the first time and didn't even know how you would ride it and didn't know if I could survive it, and now some of that same terrain is just like ride through it. It's just fun to do, and I love that, converting what seemed impossible into not just possible but fun and easy. I love that about mountain biking. I love that about just bikes in general, which I guess brings me to the next thing, which is I love the gear. I like looking at new technology that's coming out and geeking out over it. I like thinking about, like, do I want that thing, and also just knowing what my gear is doing and what's good or what's bad about the gear that I have. I think gear is cool. I'm really into gear. Another thing that I'm into is going fast. I think, with skateboarding, you never really went that fast in terms of miles per hour, but you would experience, you could experience those G's when you're carving a bowl or dropping into something really steep, and I always really enjoyed that. I liked the tricks, I liked all that stuff, but I think going fast, and also not just going fast, but going fast and then doing something like doing a grind, doing like a back 5-0 as really long and really fast. Those are some of my favorite things to do. Basic tricks, but there's something about that, about being at a high speed, but then also like pushing it a little bit further by like increasing the risk. I think also, now that I'm like thinking about this, I loved the feel of when you were grinding on coping or concrete or whatever, the way that, the feel of that through the board, and that for me that really translates through to going fast over rock gardens. Just that feedback through the bike is just so good. I love that. I think I've talked about 4 things so far. So the 5th thing is getting stoked on other people. I experienced this a lot this last weekend, riding with Katy and watching her ride stuff that, like, so we went up to we did the climb at Santiago, and there's those, like, it's actually kind of set up almost like a progression of rock rollers up towards the top, not all the way to the top, but not the drops up there, but those rollers. And the last time we were there with her, she looked at the easiest one, the one that's like furthest riders left, and she decided not to do it. Kelly did it that day, and Katy just totally within her own right decided not to do it, and that was cool. And then when we went up there this last weekend, she eyed it up and set up, and she did it, and we were pretty stoked on that. And she did continue to do things like that on for the rest of the day. So I've seen that a number of times. I've seen it with other people where you saw what they were riding like when they started, and you see them slowly overcome their fears and learn new skills. I think again, connecting this back to skateboarding, when you know where somebody's at and they're trying to do something, some maneuver, negotiate some terrain that you may or may not find hard to do, but that it's scary for them, they've never done it, they don't know how to do it, and you're stoked for them when they're able to overcome that. So you're like that, being aware of that relative progression, and having respect for somebody regardless of where they're at in their skill level, as long as they're working to progress for today beyond where they were at yesterday. I think that's really rad. Yeah, those are the 5 things. Or 5 of the things. They're not the only 5 things, crew. They're just 5 things. 5 things that I wanted to talk about. There is a bunch of questions, and I'm going to see if I can't remember any off the top of my head. I have them in my phone, so I can't look at them until I'm parked. But I do remember one of them. I'll tell the username when I'm parked. But there's a question about whether to buy from a local shop or do, you know, direct sales. Buy online or do direct sales. And as a note, this person commented later and said that they decided to buy from a local shop, which is rad. But I think we're at a point now where you don't have to ostracize your local bike shop by buying online. Buying direct doesn't have to like make you break up with your local bike shop. I think a lot of both direct sales brands and bike shops understand that, you know, you've bought this bike, but you're still gonna need somebody to help you do the more complex things on the bike. And I think as that is like something that's become pretty obvious. Sorry, I'm trying not to run over this person. Oh my god. You know, that's becoming, everybody's understanding that, and I think if you really have concerns, talk to your bike shop, you know, before you make your purchase. It's like, talk to your doctor before riding this roller coaster. So, you know, like if you're looking at Canyon or, you know, something like that, you know, make sure that your local bike shop is going to be cool working on that. I mean, honestly, I don't know why they wouldn't, because, you know, most of the stuff is pretty standard. So it's good to like still check in if you have, assuming that you have, you know, some sort of relationship with a local bike shop. But even if you don't, and you know that you're going to be working with a local bike shop to do additional maintenance, doing, you know, suspension servicing and things like that, check in with them, you know, make sure that that's all good. But yeah, I think either is fine. I prefer to work with a local bike shop to purchase stuff, because it allows me to have a better understanding of the difference of the different bikes that they're selling, especially if they sell a number of brands. Some bike shops will have a particular brand, and so of course they're gonna like want to steer you towards that brand. Yeah, but there's nothing that can substitute for face-to-face interaction with people who know what they're talking about and who actually care about you. So yeah, not to say that like the online salespeople don't care about you, but they're not going to care about you honestly as much if they don't have that face-to-face interaction, if they can't tell you where to get good tacos nearby. Cool. And that was Owen Hobson 72 who asked me that question. Robbie Everhart 00 asks, what are your favorite places to ride? So I'm gonna answer this as a system. I have a system answer for this, and that is, my favorite place to ride is usually a place that is relatively new to me, but has become somewhat familiar. So right now that would be Greer Ranch. I've only ridden out there a few times, but I've just gotten so that I generally know how to get around there, and I feel like I could go out there by myself now and get only a little bit lost and be able to figure my way, figure out where I was at pretty quickly. But those trails, you know, I've never ridden trails like that anywhere else, but now I know them a little bit. Like I'm a little bit familiar with overdrive and distortion and stuff like that. So good stuff. That's usually my favorite place to ride, and that is right now. That being said, if I'm really honest with myself, and I base this on the fact that I think about this place relatively often, that's Snow Summit. I just love riding up there, but maybe that's also because I only get to ride it during the summer. You know, it's a limited resource, so maybe that's why I think about it all the time. But yeah, love that place. Drew's Enthused asked wet shave or dry. So wet shave. So the other question isn't relevant, but single edge, no, double. I use the 2 blades because that's what they have at the grocery store. So Sandbox 2099 asks, what was your biggest obstacle during the recent injury? So after I busted my wrist, I didn't have any like major obstacles. There were definitely times when I had a lot of pain, but I don't know if that was like, if that was an obstacle to me healing or getting better. I did have a period where I had a small infection, a skin infection, which ate up a week or so of getting into, before I could get into OT. You know what? Actually, the biggest obstacle, and this is kind of sad to say, the biggest obstacle is the fact that I spend, a lot of my days during the week on a keyboard typing. And I feel like that, like after doing that, like my wrist just doesn't feel good. So that's right now my biggest obstacle. And then Rich on 2 Wheels asks, do I prefer a backpack hydration pack or a waist pack, and why? So I prefer the Fannypack, the waist pack, the Enduro sack, whatever you want to call it, the bum bag. I prefer that because it keeps the weight low, it keeps stuff off my back, so I'm not just like sweating through a backpack. It also is going to be less likely to like jump around on my back. I know you can get some backpacks and whatnot that don't jump around on your back, and that's rad. If I'm doing a longer ride like Palm Canyon Epic or something like that, I will take a pack because I need to store a bit more stuff. But I found that Bontrager Rapid Pack that I have has actually served me really well on longer rides because the fabric expands. I've been able to stuff like an additional water bladder in there, like just in one of the sides, and then I have like a water bottle that I can put in the central holster part, and then I can put a water bottle on my bike, so I can have like 3 water bottles worth of water, and then I can stuff a bunch of snacks in there. It's a little uncomfortable at first, but once I get that first bladder of water down, it feels pretty normal. But if it's like a big trip like the Palm Canyon Epic, I'll still take a backpack, and I probably should replace mine because the one I have is from like the 90s and definitely jumps around on your back. So yeah, those are your questions. Thanks so much for submitting your questions. I love it because it lets me know what you want to know, and a lot of the times if you're asking that question, there's probably a number of other people who ask that question. So, whoa, we are going really long today. Sorry. So, thanks for watching. I hope you dug this. Hit the like button to let me know you dug this. If you want to continue getting mountain bike oriented content from the MTB Allen channel, hit that subscribe button and be getting fresh episodes every Monday at 5 p.m. as well as these raw vlogs. Yeah, see you next week.